Hello and welcome back to STEM and Society Unplugged. Today we'll be analyzing the breaking news today of Donald Trump's announcement of federal oversight and overhaul of the District of Columbia. Earlier today, Donald Trump, with the press conference as seen in this photo, pictured with Pete Hegseth, Secretary of Defense, and Pam Bondi, Attorney General, announced that he will be taking control or more control of the Capitol. In this video, we will be providing context of the situation and be providing insight of is this just or can he do this? This will be a brief and be focusing on the important bits of information needed. Alright? Short rundown of Trump's DC plan. First, context is important. Context is important with anything. You cannot form an opinion without context, or a correct opinion without context. Trump's involvement in the Capitol is a direct response to the administrator's claims of rising crime and disorder, also the assault of a Trump administration member earlier this week. A quote from him says, "The magnitude of violent crime crisis places the District of Columbia, the Capitol, among the most violent jurisdictions in the United States and the world." Now, with this, if this is all you have with context, the first thing you would do, okay, this makes sense. Putting National Guard, putting Fed will stop this crime. But this is not the only context. Again, context is important. Reports from the Manhattan Institute describe crime as a spectrum. Donald Trump is right. Homicide and motor vehicle theft have increased. However, burglary and shots fired have steadily decreased. Reasons for this drastic difference: when you would think motor vehicle is burglary, shot fired is going to be equal homicide. Context in the crime and the way it is run is very difficult to understand. So it leads you to believe we're putting more bodies in there, putting more cops, putting more National Guard, putting more people's life at stake, maybe violating some people's description of right to be who they are or live in the District of Columbia. District of Columbia has no representatives in Congress. I find it hard to believe that if I lived in an area such as that I wouldn't feel a type of way of my president putting federal overhaul in my area without representation, or for reasons that could be convoluted and changed. But you could also look at it, it's a spectrum. You can also look at it as if someone who has faced violent crime, has faced the increase of homicide and motor vehicle theft, that they would appreciate this increase of oversight, increase of protection that Donald Trump is offering. But it's important to look for the context in which he is doing this, and context in history when someone does do this, or if there's other ways to fix this problem. Here's a more detailed graph and chart of crime trends in Washington, D.C. from January 2009, so the beginning of the Obama administration pretty much, and 1 year, about a year and a half before Trump's second administration. Assault with a dangerous weapon has steadily decreased. Burglary reached its peak around 2011 probably and has drastically decreased. Homicide has increased. This is a very important statistic. Motor vehicle theft has probably seen the greatest amount of increase since the pandemic, just skyrocketing. Robbery has decreased and now is skyrocketing again. Sex abuse reached its peak around, I want to say, there's no access here for the year, but it reached its high and now it is decreasing and staying pretty stable. Shots fired remained pretty low before the pandemic, skyrocketed directly after, and now is steadily decreasing. My apologies. Theft from auto, which I'm assuming is theft from the vehicle without stealing the vehicle itself, has been the highest rate of crime other than theft we have seen. But since the pandemic, it has steadily decreased with the little bumps, and now is decreasing again. And now other forms of crime or other theft has stayed pretty consistent, but since the pandemic, it has dropped, but now it is rising again. And with all this rise in crime, it makes you to believe, okay, there needs to be change here. But it's Trump's change what the Capitol needs. Is it right? Trump can make very stern claims in the federalization of DC. He can make claims, he can make all this, we're going to be tough on crime and everything. But this cannot be done without work from Congress. Congress is the very tool, the very governor of the Capitol per se. It has the most say in what's done, from pools regulation to voting times to schools to whatever. And this is a source here that I think would be nice to dive into a little bit and dissect. PBS News. That's a little bit of a soft topic, but can Trump invoke a federal takeover of DC? Experts say it's possible, but not simple. Now, I think a very important thing here is to look at Trump's claims and if it is right. In this quote, if DC doesn't get its act together quickly, we will have no choice but to take federal control of the city and run this city how it should be run, and put criminals on notice that they're not going to get away with it anymore. Perhaps it should have been done a long time ago, then this incredible young man and so many others would not have gone down the horrors of violent crime. If this continues, I'm going to exert my powers and federalize this city. Make America great again. There's a lot to unpack here. I think it is every president's right and duty to protect its citizens. However, is an inch close to authoritarianism controlling a city and threatening to control other cities, not seen in this quote, but it has been talked about, and moving this federalization of the National Guard, not of the National Guard, but federalization by bringing in the National Guard and overseeing it. When does this stop? It is important. I can see the reasons why for doing it in DC. I can understand it. Do I agree with it? We'll get into that. But when does the control stop? Because not every city is experiencing this amount of crime, but he's threatening it. Red cities are experiencing crime, or blue cities are experiencing crime. But it has never been a solution to put more bodies, put more people in harm's way, put more oversight over an already struggling area. Federalizing the city, make America great again. Federalizing a city has a touch of authoritarianism in it, and especially with the past months. He's been in office 7 months. We have seen a lot of inches towards authoritarianism, and I think this is another step to it. I don't think this is necessary. I think there's other ways to work with this. I think taking the step, the jump, the skip and the hop to doing this, even though he might be in his right, I think it is a terrible decision. I think it is a step towards a surveillance state. I think it's a step towards government overreach. I think this needs to be controlled. Should there be an increase of resources, increase of attention on the crime problem? Yes. Is this how I believe we should do it? Absolutely not. What is the home rule? This is what Donald Trump is basing his I have the right within my rights. Now, I'm not going to read all of this. You're welcome to read it on your own, but the gist of it is saying the district has no full congressional representation, and here, since 1974, and indeed for all of DC history, members of Congress have interfered in city affairs to fiddle with everything from how long pools are open to banning the city from using its own tax money for needle exchange programs, said George Derrick Musgrove, a University of Maryland, Baltimore County historian. That's important context. Congress is the one that normally has say in what is done in DC. So it leads you to believe, will the majority Republican Congress follow Trump yet again to his will and interfere again in this federalization? A deeper context into federalizing the DC. I'm sure there's a plan to federalize, but this is what I really wanted to get at with this article. Legal scholars agreed, given the explicit language in the Constitution, Trump cannot simply take over the district and oust its home rule elected leadership. He would have to work with Congress, the entity framers entrusted with overseeing the Capitol. He must work with Congress. And with the majority Republican Congress, I'm sure he will be able to. But how long will this last? How long will he be able to do this? Will it succeed? Can we trust this succession? I don't know. And with midterms, what happens if he loses that majority? Does this stall out? These are very important questions to be asked regarding Trump's federalization of DC. Thank you very much for your time. I recommend you research this, you talk to your peers about this, because this is a major step in Trump's agenda and a major step to, some will say, authoritarianism. Stay safe, stay educated, trust yourself, trust others, and trust higher education. That's all I have to say. Goodbye.